Okay, let's go to Romans 12. And these are verses that you know, that all of you know quite well. I remember sharing these a couple of years ago with a person that was of the same background as most of us, and really had a difficult time with these verses because they were used and abused with many Christians. They were used kind of like they were misused as a hammer rather than understood for the great beauty that are in these verses. So if you have an affinity towards any of this stuff in these two verses that we're going to start out with, please refresh your push the re-record button, I guess, in your brain. And let's look at these again in a fresh way, because we're going to look at Romans chapter 12, verses 1 and 2. Paul writes, I urge you, therefore, and that's a plead. I urge you, therefore, brothers and sisters, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice. And what does that mean, to be a living sacrifice? To present ourselves as a living sacrifice is to live for him, which I know that you are doing. You express it in your prayers, you express it in the manifestations, you express it by your participation here. You're endeavoring to live for him. And that's what Paul is pleading with us to do. Present ourselves as a living sacrifice, holy, pleasing to God, which is our reasonable or your reasonable service. And do not be conformed to the pattern of this age. Do not be conformed to the pattern of this age. If we're not to be conformed to the pattern of this age, then this age must have a form, a unique form of its own. And it must have a pattern that can be followed, that can be traced, that can be copied. And we're not to do that. But instead, we're supposed to be transformed by changing our mind, by renewing our mind, by changing the way we think, changing the way we consider, changing the way that we process, changing our mind, renewing it, making it new in quality. Is that word? Making it new in quality, a better quality than that which is of this age, so that you can test and approve what is the will of God, or what the will of God is, the thing that is good and pleasing and perfect. I remember when I was growing up, I was little, Mom would take me with her shopping, right? We'd go to one of two stores, a lot of times. We'd go to either Sears and Roebuck, showing my age, or we'd go to this one little store that was in Toledo called Murphy's 5 and Dime. And both stores had these, to me, they were huge. What would you call them? Like a file cabinet, but not a file cabinet, but these huge cabinets, long, with thin drawers. It seemed like hundreds of them. And in those drawers were these little paper envelopes with patterns in them. And you might be able to still buy them, I don't know. But Mom would buy these patterns. And I think they cost a dime or 12 cents or something like that. And she'd take them home. She'd get a bunch of fabric out. She'd take the patterns out of the package, cut the pattern, trim the pattern, pin the pattern to the cloth, cut the cloth out, tracing those lines, right? She traced those lines perfectly. And it just showed you where to put buttons. It showed you where to put, um, I forget what it's all called, but show you where the stitch lines are, show you where to put the zippers, do all that, pleats, whatever that is, show you how to do all that stuff. And then she'd put all these pieces of cloth that she'd cut out of these patterns, from these patterns, and make a dress or a shirt or a sweater or whatever. And it come out perfect, come out just like the pattern. It followed the pattern because my mom traced it or cut it out perfectly along the lines that it was supposed to be. The cloth had become conformed to the pattern of the item that she was making. We can't follow the pattern of this age and think that we are not going to be conformed to it. Right? I can't follow the pattern. If I follow the pattern, it's getting traced in my mind. It's getting traced on me. And I will become conformed to it and look like it and be like it. That's how a pattern works. Didn't know I knew that much about sewing, did you? Well, Paul goes on in chapter 12 to talk about a lot of different areas of life that we are to change. Obviously, it's not an exhaustive list. There's a lot more, but these were specific areas and specific challenges that the believers in Rome were dealing with, that they were having to overcome and change and renew their thinking concerning. But in verse 17, near the end of the chapter, he says, do not repay anyone evil for evil. So repaying people evil for evil is part of the pattern of this age. Think ahead of time how to do what is honorable in the sight of everyone. It's not thinking ahead of time what to do is honorable in the sight of everyone. It's part of the pattern of this age. He's telling us, think ahead of time, prepare ourselves for life, prepare ourselves for what may come today. What am I doing today? I'm driving to work. What could possibly happen on the way to work? Well, that's going to come up. Prepare myself ahead of time so that I can respond to life in a way that will glorify God, even if nobody sees it, in a way that will magnify him, that is pleasing to him, a living sacrifice. If it is possible, verse 18, if it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live in peace with all people. That's not always possible. But if it's possible, and if it depends on you whatsoever, live in peace with all people, all of them. Do not avenge yourselves, beloved, but give place to the wrath of God. For it is written, vengeance belongs to me, I will repay, says the Lord. Interstate 80 goes right across the country. Most of you know that. It goes right across. And it goes right through the northern part of Ohio. I drive on it a lot. I'm on Interstate 80, minding my own business, driving pretty close to the speed limit. And this car comes careening past me, just flying, and quickly pulls over into my lane. And not a not a second or two later comes a second one. He's going even faster, and he overtakes the first and cuts him off. And I'm like, whoa, what is going on? Why? Well, it became obvious that car number one may have or must have cut off car number two. And car number two was not going to allow that to stand. And he zooms forward and cuts off car number one. We call that road rage, right? You've all seen it. Might have even partaken in it, maybe. Road rage. It's a desire to get payback. We want payback. We feel like something has wronged us. This car number two wronged car number one wronged car number two. And he wants payback. By golly, that's not letting that happen. Make this guy pay. Payback is the quintessential definition of vengeance. Evil for evil, vengeance. But this present age teaches us that payback is right. Sure, shouldn't that guy pay? Payback, karma, instant karma. That's what it teaches. He got what's coming to him or her. They had it coming. Are we really sure that they had it coming? Are we capable of making that judgment call? Do we really know all of the circumstances? Everything behind the incident that led up to whatever wronged us? We don't. We don't know what happened. We don't know what took place. John Shainheit was talking about, I cannot remember the man's name. It was a minister. And there was a man that they were both at a store, and this gentleman had two children with him, and the children were acting up. They were being unruly. And and you've all seen that in a store. They wail, they cry, they throw a fit, all kinds of things can happen. And finally, the minister just had enough and went up to the man and commented on his children, saying, maybe you should get your kids under control. I mean, they're making a great disturbance and it doesn't look good. And the man responded, their mother just passed away and they don't really know what to do. They don't know how to handle it. We don't know the background story of what happened. But yet the world wants to tell us, this present age wants to tell us that when we feel like we've been wrong, that we should seek payback. But Paul tells us not to be conformed to the pattern of this world. That word vengeance is punishment, or the melting out of justice, the giving of justice, a retaliation for a wrong, a harm that has been done, or a penalty inflicted on wrongdoers. I don't know how to do that. I am not just enough to issue justice. I don't have all the information. I don't have all the details. I can't do that. We have laws in this land for that, and those laws are to be abided by. So if I've been wronged, I take it to those who are in ruling authorities. But what about politicians then? When we feel like the politicians have wronged us, oh, by golly, we should be able to get justice then. We should be able to get vengeance, payback. They did this and took away this and did this and this harmed me here and there. Payback. They need to get what's coming to them. That's not for me to decide. That is me living according to the pattern of this age. Nope. God said, vengeance belongs to him. He owns it. Just like it says in Psalm 24:1, the earth is Yahweh's and all that it contains, the world and all those who dwell in it. Vengeance also belongs to him. He owns it. And he, the only just judge, will issue it out justly. But it's natural. It's natural. It's natural to want justice. The scriptures say, blessed are those that hunger and thirst after righteousness. They will be filled. That is coming. You know, we hunger for righteousness. We want life to be just and honest. We hunger for that. And when Jesus Christ establishes the millennial kingdom, it will be that way. But right now, justice and vengeance belongs to God, not us. So then what should be our proper response to an injustice or a wrong done to us, or a wrong that we perceive has been done to us? We get cut off in traffic, or something maybe a little more major than that. Look at Luke chapter 18. Gail, your prayer tonight was awesome. Your prayer, it was a very powerful prayer for deliverance and protection. And it fit right along with this. What is our response to an injustice? Now, I'll tell you an incident. My family and I were sitting in our living room, and all of a sudden we heard this sound. It is a very distinct sound of 3 high-pitched hits inside my house. My youngest son said, "Dad, I think somebody just hit our house with a golf ball." Okay. And I looked at him, I said, "No, son, that wasn't a golf ball, that was a bullet." So I rushed my family out, sent them over to my mother-in-law's house. We were going there anyways. I told them, get out of the house, go there. And I went through, I have a very small neighborhood. And I called my one neighbor and talked to him about another neighbor. And I said, "Hey, are you shooting?" Because a lot of the people that live around me shoot guns, but they're all safe. They all shoot in the proper direction. And they target practice and all that. And, you know, my neighbor right next to me said, "No, I wasn't out shooting." Asked about that another neighbor. He said, "No, that he's not even home, so he wasn't shooting." I went down to a real close friend, asked him if he knew anyone who was shooting. He said, "Yeah, the guy in the blue house, which is just off to the northwest of me." So I drove down to his house, and I said, "Hey, man, were you shooting just a few minutes ago?" He said, "Yeah, I work up at Davis-Besse, which is a nuclear power plant." He says, I'm one of the guards up there. He says, "I also shoot competitively. So I was out here practice shooting." I said, what were you shooting at?" And he says, "I was shooting at these logs." I said, "Really? You were shooting at round logs?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "You shot through my house." So he was a little freaked out. And he says, "Can I come over and look?" I said, Sure, let's go." And we found where the bullet entered my house, and came in through the kitchen and went right through the pass-through window into my living room and lodged into the wall of my living room closet, right over top of our heads. And he's really nervous, really freaked out. And I said, it's okay. It's all right. Nobody was hurt. It's all right. I just, need to repair the damage. It's not a big deal. He said, I'll take care of it. I'll take care of everything. Don't worry about it. I said, that's fine. That's all we need to do. I said, I'm not calling the cops or anything like that. I'm not going to call the sheriff. We should be able to work this out as neighbors. So he says, look, my family and I are going to church. Is it okay if I bring them by after church? And we finished talking about this. I said, certainly, that's fine. So later on the afternoon, the early evening, he and his family show up at my house and we're talking about it. And again, look, we'll take care of everything. We're so sorry, blah, blah, blah. I said, no, that's fine. That's all that I want. No one was hurt. It was a bad idea shooting at round logs because your bullet ricocheted. And so, I thought everything was going to be fine. It was either the next day or 2 days later, deputy sheriff shows up at my house and says, so look, I'm here to tell you that your neighbor is not going to fulfill his agreement with you concerning the damage that was done to your house. I said, oh, really? He says, yeah, he did. It's impossible that his bullet traveled that far. He says, I did the math. I looked at it. And so he's not going to honor the gentleman's agreement. Oh, well, okay. And it ended up playing out that I just ended up writing the gentleman a letter. He's a Christian, I'm a Christian, and I left it at that. He never did fulfill his part of the bargain. I made the repairs to my house. I did not seek vengeance. I didn't seek payback. I didn't want the guy to lose his job. He's a security guard. He made a very bad decision. He made a big mistake. And luckily, nobody was injured. No one was hurt. But, he made a bad choice. I had some damage done to my house. I repaired the damage to my house. I forgave the infraction. I did not seek vengeance. In Luke 18, verse 1, Jesus is telling this parable that's really beautiful. It says, and he spoke a parable to them about the necessity for them always to pray and not become discouraged. And he said, in a certain city, there was a certain judge who did not fear God and showed no regard for people. A nice judge. He didn't fear God, and he showed no regard for the people that he was supposed to be officiating for. And there was a widow in that city who kept coming to him saying, give me justice against my opponent. And he would not for a while. But afterward he said to himself, though I do not fear God, nor regard people, yet because this widow keeps bothering me, I'll give her some justice, lest she wear me out by her continual coming. He wasn't cared about her. He didn't care about her. He only cared about himself. And the Lord said, Jesus said, hear what the unrighteous judge says. And will not God give justice to his chosen ones who cry to him day and night? Will he delay long in helping them? I say to you that he will give justice to them speedily. Nevertheless, when the Son of Man comes, will he find trust on the earth? Jesus says our response to a wrongdoing first is prayer, contemplation and prayer. Pray for that person that may have done us wrong. We don't know all the facts. We don't know all the situation. It says in Romans, pray, pray for them that persecute us. Pray for our enemies. Prayer. First, we pray. We're to remain hungry and thirsty for righteousness. Back to Romans chapter 12, please. It's interesting that the question that Jesus asked there at the end of that parable goes unanswered. You know, will the Son of Man, when the Son of Man comes, will he find trust on the earth? That question goes unanswered. It's left out there hanging for us to ponder over, to think about, to dwell on. Will there be trust on the earth? You know, that is left for you and I to decide, at least for our own lives, and for us to encourage in one another and others. In Romans 12, verse 20, Paul finishes up. But if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he's thirsty, give him a drink. For by doing this, you will heap coals of fire on his head. That's quoted out of Proverbs 25, but we don't really know what that means, heaping coals of fire on their head. Bishop Casey Pillai said one thing, that it meant, this custom about a person carrying a pot in the early morning on their head and having the cold or the warm coals from the evening's fire put in that pot and it would warm him. It could be that. It's something cultural, but the full understanding of that has been lost. But the way that the verse is written, it's something that is good. It's something that that person would enjoy, something that would be good for them. If your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he's thirsty, give him a drink. For by doing this, you will heap coals of fire in his head. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. Just like the widow, we have judges, we have governments, we have governors, and laws. But governments and judges, they don't always govern justly. So, and they can actually cause harm. What's our response? Pray, prayer. They are responsible before God to govern justly. They're responsible before God to rule justly. If they do not, God will avenge his enemies. You know, that whole statement in Romans that we read, vengeance belongs to me, I will repay, says Yahweh. Comes out of Deuteronomy 32. Deuteronomy 32. I'm going to close there. We'll go to, you should read this entire thing. Well, we're not going to close there. We're getting close to closing there. But you should read this entire chapter. It's the Song of Moses. It's at the end of Moses's life. It's one of the last things that he can tell the children of Israel. And he says all of this that's in this Song of Moses. And it's absolutely gorgeous. And you should read it and contemplate it. But let's go to verse, 25, I believe. Can't read it then. 25, 26, 27, that's 28. For they are a nation void of counsel. There is no understanding. Consider their latter end. How could one chase 1,000 and two put 10,000 to flight unless their rock had sold them and Yahweh had given them up? For their rock is not our rock, even our enemies themselves being judges. For their vine is the vine of Sodom, of the fields of Gomorrah. Their grapes are grapes of gall. Their clusters are bitter. Their wine is the poison of serpents, the cruel venom of asps. Is this not laid up in store with me? Sealed up among my treasures, God says. Vengeance is mine and pay back. At the time when their foot slips, for the day of their calamity is at hand, and the things prepared for them come speedily. Payback belongs to Yahweh. Those that sometimes appear to do us wrong, we don't know all the background. Maybe they don't deserve any payback. They deserve compassion. They deserve prayed for. For Yahweh will judge his people and have compassion on his servants when he sees that their power is gone and there is none remaining to help, slave or free. Then he will say, where is their gods? Not his people, but his people's enemies, the rock in whom they took refuge, who ate the fat of their sacrifices and drank the wine of their drink offering. Let them rise up and help you. Let them be your protection. See now that I, even I am he, there is no God with me. I kill and I make alive, I wound and I heal. There is no one who can deliver out of my hand. For I lift up my hand to heaven to swear and say, as I live forever, if I whet my glittering sword, my hand take hold on judgment, I will render vengeance to my adversaries and will recompense those who hate me. I will make my arrows drunk with blood. My sword will devour flesh with the blood of the slain and the captives, from the head of the leaders of the enemy. Rejoice, you nations, with his people, for he will avenge the blood of his servants. He will render vengeance to his adversaries and will make expiation, amends, that is, reparations, payback for his land, for his people. Vengeance belongs to the Lord, not us. David, look at 2 Samuel 22. Here we will close, because this little psalm that David says in 2 Samuel 22 is also recorded in Psalm 18, again about vengeance. 2 Samuel 22 verses 47 to 51. 47, Yahweh lives. Blessed be my rock. Exalted be God, the rock of my salvation. The God who executes vengeance for me, so that I don't have to. Only have to be worried about it. Don't have to think about it. He will execute vengeance for me, who subdues people under me, who brings me out from among my enemies. You lift me up above those who rise up against me. You deliver me from the violent person. Therefore, I will give thanks to you, Yahweh. I will pray. I will praise. I will give thanks to you, Yahweh, among the nations, and I will make music to your name. He gives great salvation to his king and shows covenant faithfulness to his anointed one, to David and to his seed forevermore. And that extends to you and I. So Christians should not be vengeful. We should pray for people and be hungry and thirsty for righteousness.